So, just a good welcome. My name is Pearl and I work with Launch Pad. I just started a month ago, so this info session is as much for me as it is for you. I am working as a marketing and communications project assistant as well, so you will see me around if you do happen to hang out in that space. We actually, you would have seen on your seats, we have a party coming up in 2 weeks on the Thursday, so I'd love to see you all there. Today is an info session for Launchpad. So I'm just going to start with some housekeeping. If you exit on the right, that's the closest exit that we have, and in the case of an emergency, the closest evacuation point is near EE. But if that does happen, you should be able to follow us and we'll be able to direct you about where to go. We also would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Barramadigal lands. So these are the lands traditionally belonging to the Darug people, and on behalf of us all gathering here today, we pay respects to the campus and community elders past, present and future, and extend our acknowledgements to any First Nations people present with us today. Alrighty, so I think we'll get started. Just a quick introduction to Launchpad. Who here has heard of Launchpad before today? Quite a few people. What did you think it was?
Something that can help the startup growth.
Yeah, fair enough. And everyone else this is the first time you're hearing of Launchpad as well? Awesome. Okay. Well, hopefully by the end of today, you'll be able to find out what we're all about. There will be questions and answers as well for you. Does everyone here have a mobile phone that they can scan QR codes with, hopefully? Awesome. So later on, I will put up a QR code where you can scan and type in your questions if you didn't want to call it out. So when it pops up on there, one of us will be able to answer as well. A little bit about Launchpad. We offer a few different sort of programs and trainings, and we also have a Bachelor of Entrepreneurship and some units that you can do. I think with the units, you'll be able to find them on the handbook. So if anyone's interested, we can have a chat later as well, and you can have the opportunity to ask a little bit more. Startup Accelerators is one of the programs that we have, and Venture Makers too. And without giving away too much, I might just introduce our panelists for today. So if we wanted to maybe start with Brad and just a quick introduction of yourself, and we'll move on that way as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Brad Twynham. I'm the Entrepreneur in Residence for Venture Makers, which is a distinct program within Launchpad. Jamie will explain the accelerator side momentarily. So I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. I had 3 enterprise technology startups. The last one took me to Los Angeles, where I lived for 7 years, and then exited that, came back here in about 2015. And now I have worked for the Australian federal government, funding incubators across the country, and that led me here to Western Sydney Uni, where I've been working on creating the Venture Makers program over the last 18 months. And do you want me to tell them a little bit about that now, or shall we leave that for later?
We can talk a little bit.
Yeah, so Venture Makers is predominantly focused on entrepreneurial training, as opposed to starting a startup, which is the stuff that Jamie will talk to you about. And we're really about creating those or building those skills within students that you will need in the workplace of the future, because the workplace of the future is very much becoming a lot more entrepreneurial, a lot more agile teams. So what we do in Venture Makers is focus on more of the discovery part and the ideation part of developing those entrepreneurial skills. So how do you define problems? How do you then create solutions that can solve them? And then how do you communicate those ideas effectively to audiences? So they're the primary skills that we focus on. And we have a Venture Makers unit, which you can now take as part of any degree across the university. And I encourage you to check that out. That's worth 10 credit points towards any degree that you do at the university. And we also have innovation challenges, which are run as part of Venture Makers as well. And those innovation challenges, we run 2 a year. Our next one is on getting to net zero, which will be run later on in September this year. And I'll give you more information about that shortly. So that's me.
Thank you, Brad. And we have me as well today. So you can tell us a little bit about what you're studying, if you're working at
Hi everyone. My name is Me. I'm currently a third year student doing a Bachelor of Science slash Bachelor of Applied Data Science. I had the opportunity to get to know Brad and a couple of more of us here at Launchpad through the Venture Makers Innovation Challenge. It was in
November last year.
November last year. Yeah, yeah, it was really good. I had a good team back then, and yeah, I guess the learning experience was really precious to all of us. I encourage you, like every student should get the opportunity to like tell their ideas to the world. And pitching has been a really good experience to get in your university journey as well. So yeah. Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, me. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. My name's Jamie Pride, and I am the Chief Entrepreneur in Residence for Western and Launchpad. My background is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I was sitting where you were. I did I did a physics degree at UTS, and then I did my master's at Macquarie, and I'm actually now commencing a PhD here at Western. The reason I say that is because entrepreneurs can come from all different disciplines. So no matter what you do, you can potentially be an entrepreneur. I'm probably most known for being the CEO of realestate.com.au, which I grew to about $1.5 billion of market capitalization. I have founded 6 technology startups. 3 were complete disasters. One, I made $200 million in 14 weeks, and I lost $195 million in 14 weeks. I've done a couple of IPOs, so listed my company. I've worked for some US tech companies, and I've run a venture capital fund. And the reason I say that is not to make myself sound great, even though I am. It's more to say that one of the things we're really proud of here, as you heard from Brad, is the experience of the team. So for me, entrepreneurialism is something you do, not something you talk about. And so the staff at Launchpad are all applied entrepreneurs. So where people have made heaps of mistakes, and I mean, I do have a Ferrari, but we're not here to make money. We're here to make a difference. But we've got a lot of scar tissue. So we have, I think, a passion for, I guess, innovation. Whether you're going to a career where you need those skills as an entrepreneur. Employers. I was the managing partner for Deloitte Digital. And I can tell you that employers want entrepreneurial skills, but also if you want to start your own side hustle, or if you want to start your own business. Now, the part of Launchpad that I am focused on at the moment is the accelerator part of the program. So where Brad and his team are focused on delivering entrepreneurial education, we are about entrepreneurial, that's a big word, huh? Entrepreneurial education in motion, which means we want to help you with a specific business. So if you've got a side hustle or an idea and you want to get that accelerated, we're the place for you. My star pupil is to my right, and I'll let him speak.
Thank you, Jamie. And me, Brad, Pearl, thank you for organising this, and everyone here. I couldn't be here without you guys. My name's Jacob, and in 2019 I did sustain a spinal cord injury. I broke my neck and I spent 9 months in hospital. Before that I was doing landscape construction. That was it. I did that for 6 years. It was a very normal job. And during that time I wanted to make the world a better place, and I know it's a huge aspiration. When I broke my neck, I spent 9 months in hospital. I was thinking, how do I make the support inside of the hospital outside without needing to break your neck? And that's seriously it. I just want to be accessible for everybody. And I strongly believe that having access to the supports that you need is one of the things that we need to do in the future. I went through the Ignition Launchpad Accelerator with my concept in my head, and it really helped me refine it. And essentially, it's creating a platform for social workers to be online and support the community one-on-one or in group sessions. And that was through a 12-month program. I got rid of so many things that just weren't necessary to create the thing and keep it up and running. Also working as a community engagement manager when I'm not working on my projects for a company called WeFlex. And they're helping normalize exercise for people with disabilities. They've partnered with Anytime Fitness, and so I like to use my own experience and help build the community. And having representation is really important.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for sharing and for your introductions as well. So now we will get to this part here. So the question for the audience, what do you hope to get out of today's info session? So if I could just get you to scan this QR code up here, it should take you to a Mentimeter page. So Brad, question for Brad.
Yes.
How did you get started as an entrepreneur? Did you study a related course at university?
So my degree was actually in biophysics and exercise physiology, so absolutely not. And I was actually, my first ever job out of uni was as a scientist at the AIS, and I was studying the angle of the knee joint to produce the most torque in a cyclist, to get the most power output in a cyclist. And after 6 months of doing that, I sat there and thought, I can't see myself doing this for the next 30 years. And so I left that job and didn't know what I was going to do, and bumped into a guy who was, starting a company. And it was around researching big IT projects in large corporations and compiling a database of, information that people who were selling solutions to these organizations would want. Now, this is 1992, guys. So, we didn't have LinkedIn or we didn't have Google back then, right? I mean, this was all manual stuff, And I knew nothing about computers. I thought computers was something that teenagers sold you at Harvey Norman. Had no idea that there was this whole world of corporate computing out there, and took a big chance on it. And he brought me into the business as a co-founder. Didn't know what that was. I guess the only other person in the business at the time was a true definition. And we started this business, and it went moderately well. And we ended up selling that to a big research company after 2.5 years. And from there, I went in and worked for one of our clients, which was acquired then by probably one of the most highly funded startups out of Silicon Valley at the time, called BEA Systems. And they became a significantly large company. I was the youngest vice president in the company. So at the age of 25, I went from being employee number 13 to being the youngest vice president in the organization, running the Asia Pacific market for that company. And they ended up IPOing, and then 7 years later, they sold the business to Oracle Corporation for $30 billion. So that's how it was my introduction to entrepreneurship. And then from there, I went on and founded 2 other enterprise tech startups, both that went pretty well. So I mean, I don't think anyone sets out to be an entrepreneur. I mean, maybe today, I don't know. It's something most people fall into because they've got a burning problem they want to solve, or someone invites them along for a journey, or they go and work for a startup, and then they realize, oh yeah, I could do something like this myself. One of the startups I work very closely with now is a company called Go1 up in Brisbane, and they're now worth $2 billion market capitalization, and they have employees who come into that organization every day who then decide to start their own startups as a result of being around, an environment of fresh ideas and fresh talent. So I think, these skills and getting exposure to them are really vital. And if you've ever got a big problem to solve, either working inside of a big organization or outside, then these skills are highly extensible. Yeah.
So I have another question for Brad actually. What is the biggest piece of advice, you studied in uni yourself and you went through a bunch of different changes to get to where you are today. What's the biggest piece of advice you can give to uni students who might want to become an entrepreneur or run their own business?
Yeah. Look, I don't have any specific, advice whether you want to be an entrepreneur. My advice is general life advice, which is life's made up of sliding doors moments, and be open to them, be curious, and step into them when they present themselves. So, right here you've got, some people who have done some programs at Launch Pad. You've got Jamie and I who have both, had pretty successful careers as entrepreneurs and traveled the world and done a lot of cool stuff. There's a tremendous opportunity here, and step through the doors that open to you. Whether it's doing a Venture Makers program or whether it's exploring an idea through Launchpad, through the various programs they run. Be curious and step into them. Don't be afraid. That would be my advice.
Thank you, Brad. So I have a question for me as well. Last year when you participated in the Venture Makers Innovation Challenge, could you tell us a little bit about what the challenge was and what your team came up with and the process of how you all worked together to solve it?
I certainly can. And looking back on the challenge, I think it was one of the most precious learning experience that I've got in my university journey. So I remember the theme at the time was to work on a solution to address digital identity. So as we all know that as we are digitizing so many assets, and identity appears to be one of them. So how would it be like? What our human identity actually becomes when we move like that identity onto, for example, a social media platform? How would that be different from the normal identity that we've got? I'm hoping that's making sense. So our process was to walk through so we need to identify an aspect that we want to work on, and I think our team was working on the social media platform, like the social media aspect of it, because as we all know, there are many ways that you can digitize human identity, and one of the ways is to do that on social media. And I think at the time, I think that was really relevant to all of us as a team back then. So we kind of just like chose it at the time. It was a very interesting journey to learn how to define a problem in like such a new space. Like we haven't done that before. So when we were doing it, I remember like meeting with the team at very late nights at the time, because everyone had different commitments. Everyone had different working schedules at the time. And I remember meeting with the team to just brainstorm our ideas and get them together into like a solutions that we could deliver at the time. We came up with a social media platform that is tailored to protect people's to protect users' privacy, because we thought that it would be it was a very important aspect of transitioning from a physical environment into like a digital kind of platform as well. So that's how we sort of like wrap our solution about. And yeah, I'd say it was a really interesting learning process. I mean, for all of us as students, and it was a really good learning experience. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Lee. I have a question for Jamie actually. So you mentioned that you're probably most known as the former CEO of realestate.com. What would you say is your biggest achievement throughout your whole career though?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I mean, I think for me, I'm still constantly learning. Um, Probably the point in time where I kind of, um, I think the thing I'm most proud of is sort of all of the other entrepreneurs that I have created or generated along the way. So for me, I've gone to see people who've worked for me or with me, go on to do, pretty amazing things, be, the CFO of Canva, for example, people who've started their own startups and listed it. So I think it's more about having that kind of an impact. I wrote a book a while ago called Unicorn Tears, which was published globally by Wiley. One of the things that I'm really, really passionate about is mental health in the entrepreneurial space. Because we're going to tell you about the great stuff in entrepreneurialism, and you should think about the great stuff in entrepreneurialism, but it's a roller coaster, and you have to get very comfortable with failure. Because 92% of all startups fail within the first 3 years, and that's perfectly normal. So a lot of the characteristics of what makes a great entrepreneur is their resilience. So, your ability to kind of get back up and go again, and to learn from your mistakes. And so the thing I'm most proud of is, really, I guess, destigmatizing failure in the entrepreneurial landscape, and making sure that entrepreneurs feel supported around their mental health and resiliency. Yep.
Thank you, Jamie. I have a quick question as well for Jacob. So could you tell us a little bit more about your experience doing the 12-month program, and maybe tell us why you think other students should participate in it as well?
Yep, absolutely. So I think it was a 12-week program. 12 weeks. Yep, that's right. So at the beginning, I thought that I was completely by myself, and I didn't think that anyone else was doing this type of thing called entrepreneurialism. And I thought it was like a stigma. It's like, I am an entrepreneur, like I'm a vegan, right? I think when I've tried veganism, so vegan, yeah. But I think that we just have to normalize it, because why we're doing it is because we want to make an impact. All right, and I think we should be proud of that, and we should really bring your friends up as well. If they tell you, oh, I'm starting like this idea, you should listen to them and just encourage them, right? And be give them critical feedback. If they can't welcome critical feedback, then honestly, I don't know if they're a good founder, because that's how I've grown. I've just been open. During that time, I've spoken to other entrepreneurs and founders, and listened to their ideas. We've grown together. We've listened to each other's struggles, our wins, and it was good to know that some people were in the same boat as me. We were just staying stagnant, and we just had to make massive changes. Sometimes the best things happen when you make massive and immediate action. So I think I've learned that from the end. It's just like make more risks that are educated. We fall, like we're in Australia. It's a very safe place to land when things don't go out. And what I've learned from it is to make something sustainable, ethical, and scalable, make a big impact.
I think just to that point, just adding on, a lot of people hesitate because of fear of failure. Okay, firstly, don't fear it. You will fail, 100%. So you should just get that out of the way quickly. Also, I envy the position you're currently in, because you are at the peak potential for trying heaps of things. So your risk profile should be very high. You've got 25, 30 failures in you before it starts to become an issue, right? I'm older with kids and a family and mortgages and all of those kind of things. So my risk profile is reduced over time. So if I was going back to give my younger self advice, it would be take heaps more risk because you're gonna have to burn through some ideas anyway. So you might as well get started and cut your teeth. So if you're thinking about starting a startup, start it tomorrow. Start it this afternoon, right? Money, time, there's almost no barrier. We have a very democratized system. There's almost, if you can give me any excuse in the book, I can tell you why we can get around it. Like, you can start your startup tomorrow with very, very little money, technology. There's always a workaround. So my strong advice would be, you can have a side hustle, you can still study. If you've got any inkling, take heaps more risk when it comes to startups.
Jamie, I'll add something to that as well. So just adding to what Jamie said, I think it's also important to note that we're entering the era of the polymath when it comes to careers. And if you don't know what a polymath is, it's like a jack of all trades. We've gone through a period in industry where it's been about heavy specialization. Having a very narrow focus and going really deep with it. What employers are looking for now, there'll always be a need for specialists, but less and less of them, right? Because the world is changing so quickly now that if you spend years and years just going really deep on a subject, and that could completely change, relatively quickly. What employers are looking for now are people who have a broad range of soft skills as opposed to deep specialist skills in something. And doing the Launch Pad programs or doing a Venture Makers programs are a really good way to start broadening those skill bases and developing almost that skill as a polymath, which is hugely valuable, whether it's an industry or whether it's starting your own company. Because as a startup founder, you need to be a jack of all trades. You need to be a marketer. You need to understand product development. You need to understand sales. You need to understand management. You need to understand how to get along with people and bring people together to solve big problems. All of those things. And I think that's really important to note as well.
Thank you. So I think the main takeaway that I received was it's not enough to just be one thing. You have to, like you said, be sort of the jack of all trades. So I am going to open up the floor to some questions. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask? And I can bring the mic over. Otherwise, we might talk a little bit more. Yeah?
Come on, you guys got some questions.
Yeah. Questions, please.
Do I need to stand up? All right. So I'm just doing social work, and this entrepreneurship. Like, I don't like to call myself an entrepreneur, but I think this is the one part that always runs in my work. I started event planning in my community, and I've been trying to initiate some kind of media thing as well. All the baby steps are moving, but the main struggle that I'm having today is how to get the right people in the team. Because today everyone wants to build their own brand, but no one will it's very hard to connect and sync with the right people. So how do you guys connect with the right people to build something?
You'd like to take this one, Jacob?
I definitely don't have as much experience as these people, but I've gone through that question before, and it's not about finding the right people. It's about having your expectations down, and if you have your expectations down of what it looks like to be working with you, people know what to bring, and yeah, just surround yourself. If you're surrounding yourself with the 5 people that you want to be like, that's where you turn into as well. If you hang out, in the wrong places, you're not going to find the right people. Go to networking events, talk. Yeah. Does anyone want to?
Yeah, actually, a couple of things. One thing I've been sort of percolating, as we've been talking about, is maybe sometimes the language constrains us. A lot of people don't identify as being an entrepreneur or a founder. Maybe the better word is to say, I just want to solve problems, right? It's like a problem solver. And the difference between an entrepreneurial problem solver and a business problem solver is entrepreneurs typically tend to work in environments where there's less known. So it's more unknown, right? So they're taking more risk, or they have to, like use their intuition or whatever. So they're operating typically without a net. Whereas if you're problem solving inside a company, you typically have a little bit more structure. But if you're not comfortable with the word entrepreneur or founder, maybe it's problem solver, right? Yeah, or innovator. Yeah, I mean, it's you're ultimately trying to build a small business, right? A lot of people who run small businesses are entrepreneurs, right? Well, actually, most of them. But yeah, it's something to think about. Question? Any more questions?
So I just want to give a slightly different perspective on that one as well. So I think obviously proximity is important. I think use the language that works for you, I think is important. Seth Godin, who's someone who I respect immensely. I don't know if you've heard of Seth Godin, but he's known as one of the big thought leaders in marketing. He says that leadership is communication, and communication is the transfer of emotion, right? And learning to be able to communicate effectively and inspire people around you will draw people to you. And I think that's, if there's any skill that you could master in today's world, it's that ability. And that's what separates, in my opinion, really good leaders, whether it's an entrepreneurial leader or a corporate leader, or even someone who's really well known for leadership at a mid-level within an organization. It's their ability to be able to inspire others and draw people to them. Be the person that someone wants to work for and work with, and that's how you draw people to you. It's learning to communicate really effectively.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. Yes, of course.
Thank you. Firstly, you guys are very motivational and very inspirational, and I feel like it's something that I've wanted to be in front of for a while. Ever since I was a kid, I feel like I've always wanted to start new things. Even in high school, I was part of a lot of committees starting new things. And even now, I'm starting a couple of things. I'm working in a family business, and we're doing a lot of things here and there. But the one thing I feel like I lack is understanding on how things work in the entrepreneurial world, or how business really works, how innovation really works. So how does Launchpad help with that?
Who'd like to answer?
Yeah, so as Jamie said, he's got a process that he's mapped out at Launchpad, which you can start a business with very little money. All you need is the intellectual capital and the drive and the idea and the germination of something that's really cool to get things off the ground. In terms of the venture makers side, I mean, getting involved in an innovation challenge where you learn the ideation process, so how do we formulate problem statements that we can then go and develop solutions for, and then how can we take those solutions and start developing low fidelity prototypes, and then how do we go and then communicate those ideas in a way that really lands and inspires people around us, where they might grab onto it and come and join us in really taking that to the next stage. I mean, that's the starting point. How to be curious about the world and how to discover things. And I love what you picked up on in that, when you come to an entrepreneurial panel like this, there is a level of inspiration because, part of the journey of this is you need to be the person who inspires you. And that's a real skill as well that you develop as you solve problems. You become your own source of inspiration as opposed to looking for it out there. And that's a tremendous skill as well that you can, bring through life. Did you say that was your experience through doing one of the Venture Makers programs? Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. That was a really good learning experience that I think both me and my entire team had came across with. We were trying to solve like a very like social problem, and I remember coming into one of the challenge for the group is that we did not have any like knowledge in that, and but what I find really like good about my team is that everyone is very willing to learn, and I think it's something that would be really helpful, like regardless of like who you are. I think it would be a really good skills that we could all achieve. fail fast, fail forward. I think it was something that, yeah, that drove us forward. Yeah.
So to answer your question directly, I think firstly there is an absolute process. It's not art; it's science. So there is a formula. Um, so we've got 3 accelerator programs. We love space metaphors here, Launchpad, right? By the way, so we start. We've got a 2-day program that's running Thursday, Friday this week called Pre-Flight, which is open to anyone. And it's just I might have an idea. What do I need to do? Right, so it's that kind of, we take you on 2-day experience and show you the overall process of what it looks like. And if at that point in time you go, yeah, actually I want to work on this idea, our next program is called Ignition. It runs for 12 weeks. It's fully part-time. So the time commitment means that you can be studying as well as doing the program. It's a couple of hours a week where we take you through a structured approach from I have an idea to building a value proposition, to building out a business model, to building out whether it's a software or a hardware idea, prototyping, to get it ready for you to build your product. Yeah? So we take you from idea to product, or just pre-product. And then we've got another program which is called Booster, which is for later stage companies that want to grow. And you know, one of the things I've learned, having founded, you know, I grew up in a housing commission with one mum. You know, I come from a very poor background, is that entrepreneurialism is really, really accessible. The process is actually not very hard at all. Like, I could teach you everything I know about entrepreneurialism in a day or two. And actually, it's a pretty well-proven process. But we still see millions and millions of failures. It's because people don't apply the process or they don't do the work. And so that's really, there's no magic secrets. Like, I really could tell you how to build a very successful startup, but quite easily. The difference is really loving problems and then applying a disciplined approach to solving those problems, and being hard on yourself to be able to kind of do the work. And, you know, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of founders, and only a small few do the work, right? And I think that's the key. But it is absolutely a process, and we teach it to you, right? Absolutely. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, I can relate. So for me, I asked the same question to some of my mentors, and they say, come up with an elevator pitch and ask 50 people, or pitch it to 50 people, right? And just listen to feedback and spend an hour on each person. You know, have a good time. And if you don't have that time, then do 3 at once, right? 3 important influences in one room. You buy them coffee and just pitch it, and then get that feedback. And every time, just look at their body language. If they're getting bored, well then obviously it's not good. Refine, and then do it again to the next person with that. And when you get to the end, you'll know that you have something good or something bad. And if it's bad, that's okay. Then you can grow and you can move forward. Change your idea. Ideally, you want to be able to impact the broader community and treat it like, this might sound bad, but treat it like it's a product. Like, whatever you're doing, you're creating a service and it's a product. Because if you attach yourself, then it's emotional. And if it doesn't work, it hurts. And I had to go through that. And don't focus on building your logo and your hashtags, because and a lot of founders do at first, and that's fair enough because it's a baby. But when you're creating a service and a product, you can create multiple, and then you can have 5 startups. And there's nothing saying that you can't have 5 startups. You know, just because you want to have one, you can create another one that benefits. You can create 3, and they all work in service each other. So it's just, you know, think outside the box.
And I'll give you one piece of free education. Nothing like this. It doesn't go on your HEX. It's all okay. So if you don't ever come and see us ever again, this is the best piece of advice I can give you, which is you need to care more about the problem than the solution, right? So I'll give you an example, right? So most startups that fail, they are in love with their solution. So Elon Musk, arguably one of the most iconic entrepreneurs, his problem is he wants us to go to Mars, right? Let's just take this there, right? If he could get us to Mars by slingshot, he would. He doesn't care. The mission is to get to Mars, right? Maybe it's this kind of rocket. Maybe the rockets blow up. Maybe they need to relaunch. He doesn't care about the rocket. He cares about getting to Mars. And because of that, he will throw away solutions if they don't work. So if you care about the problem, you hold on to the solution more loosely, right? And if the solution isn't working, you're willing to throw it away and just try and find another solution to the problem. And so if you've got like, oh, I've got this great solution to this thing, I'm like, no. Talk to me about the great problem you're trying to solve, and you've got a potential solution. Let's see if it works or doesn't work. But if we can get to Mars by slingshot in a chair with a space suit on, fantastic. Like, as long as you get to Mars, that's all that matters. And so you've got to be prepared to throw away your solutions if you want to be a good entrepreneur, but never throw away the problem, right? That for me is the number one learning of great entrepreneurs. They care more about the problems they're solving, and they hold on to their solutions loosely. Because your solution is disposable if it doesn't solve the problem.
Which is why he open sources all of his patents.
Yeah, which is why he open sources all of his patents. Absolutely.
Did we have any more questions? Yep, at the back.
I have a question for Jamie. Why have you decided to do a PhD now next to your startups, mortgage and family? So how do you find time for that?
The university said I'm a very mature age PhD, which offended me. It offended me. I'm still young. Apparently you're meant to do your PhDs when you're young. I don't know. By the time I finish it, I might be dead. So one of my personal values is I always want to be learning. And I actually love teaching. So for me, I wanted to do some deep research in entrepreneurial mindset, which is what I'm going to be doing as part of my PhD with the Institute of Culture and Society, so ICS, here, under Professor Liam McGee. So my PhD is really going to focus on, do you need to drop out of university to be an entrepreneur? So the cliche, and I'm speaking to a bunch of university students, the cliche is if you see Steve Jobs, he's a dropout. Mark Zuckerberg, dropout. Elizabeth Holmes, the dropout, right? I'm not sure. I didn't drop out of uni. And, you know, arguably I'm a successful entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneur, I think it's very important to appreciate. There's a lot of stereotypes. Diversity in entrepreneurship is super important. And that's just not just female founders. It's actually, you can be introverted and be a great entrepreneur. You don't have to be this Steve Jobs talking on stage kind of entrepreneur. You know, you don't have to be a salesperson to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be, you know, a techie to be an entrepreneur. What you need to do is you just need to be passionate about trying to solve a problem, right? You know, academic researchers are entrepreneurs, right? And so for me, I'm interested in exploring that, you know. And the reality is, this is the thing that blew my mind recently, is that academics have more in common with entrepreneurs than you think. Because academics don't work for universities. They work in universities. And they hate institutions just as much as entrepreneurs. So next time you look at your next university professor, understand they're a bit of a rebel entrepreneur inside, you know.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yep.
I won't do that. Hey, everyone, I just had a quick question. Jamie, I think it's going to come to you. In the past, I've ran a few businesses, had many different side hustles, all that sort of thing. I see my main barrier to get started as being money. Like the capital lay down and actually get things started. At the moment, I've got what I believe is a really good idea for an app that I really want to get off the ground, but I see money as being my main issue. Like, what am I doing wrong, or how can I stop seeing that money as my barrier?
Yeah, great question. So money is almost never the issue. Most startups actually fail because they're not meeting a need, right? So you may think you have a great idea for an app. My next question to you is prove it, right? And the only way to prove it is by going out and gathering data. Gathering data is free, firstly, but it's just asking the right questions to the right people to have that data. First point. I'll get to your data money second. Second point is design it. So what I would call wireframes and prototyping. I can personally, we teach wireframing and prototyping, and I think all founders, if you've got an app, I can teach you how to wireframe your app in an hour, right? So you don't have to pay a designer to do that, and wireframing or prototyping your app, again, free. I can get you a $50 tool to do that, right? So now you've got a validated idea, and you've got a wireframe for an app, right? Then we go and apply for an MVP grant with the New South Wales government, right? And they'll give you $25,000. You can then go and raise another $25,000 through your friends, family, and network. That gets you to $50,000, and you can build almost any app to a minimum viable product for $50K, right? So, but you only get one shot at that pretty much, right, with the MVP grant. So you got to make sure that you're deploying that $50,000, $25,000 free from the government, $25,000 from hustling, right? I can get you a mobile app built for $30K, maybe a couple of revisions get you to $40K. My last app I got built for $6,000, right, from a guy out of Western Australia who was side hustling, right? So where there's a will, there's a way. Getting the app built and the money is not the hard part. The hard part is building the right app, right? Because I want to build Instagram for cats, but there's just no market for Instagram for cats, right? So it's about making sure that and I love it, because everything starts with this passionate idea, right? Which you go, I got an awesome idea for an app, right? But what you've got to do is take that hypothesis and prove it. So you go to potential customers, if I built this, will you buy it? If I built this, will you buy it? It's a little bit more sophisticated than that, but I can get you to $50K pretty free, and I think that's the most amount of money you'd ever want to spend on an MVP. Brad, have you got any ideas? Because you are Mr. Capital, and
I've bootstrapped every one of my startups. I've raised venture capital twice through all three ventures, and it wasn't until I was ready to scale a business. So I'd gotten to, my first startup, we sold it pretty much, but it was bootstrapped the whole way. The second one I raised 25 million, 2.5 years after starting it, and that was to scale it across every major city in Australia in terms of establishing a presence. My third one, we got to about 10 million of revenue, purely driven by customers, and I had customers from day one, and they effectively paid to build my product for me. And then I raised $50 million to go and scale that internationally. So, I think it's very much a limiting belief around money. I mean, money's no object. We're living right now in a period of history where there's never been more venture capital available to start new businesses ever in the history, and that's only increasing. I think, as Jamie said, right, there is and not just that comment he just said, but previously, there is a formula. This is a science. We've been doing this long enough now to know it's a science. There is a set of steps. The reason people fail is they don't follow them and they don't do the hard work. And like everything in life, it's hard work. There is no such thing in life as a free ride. You can get lucky, and there's a lot of luck involved. Don't get me wrong, and out of that 95% or the 5% that succeed, it doesn't mean that you are necessarily had a bad product or etc. You may have just not gotten lucky. You may have just been at the wrong place at the wrong time, and someone else may have then taken that idea or something similar, and 5 years later it was the right time, and they've built a $3 billion business. Who knows, right? There's a lot of luck in this game. It's getting comfortable with failure and constantly working and breaking down those limiting beliefs. I think there's no better personal development program than starting and running your own business.
But there's also a lot of hacks, right, which we would teach you. But let me give you an example. if you want to run a two-sided marketplace, realestate.com is a two-sided marketplace, right? Buyers and sellers. Seek, two-sided marketplace. Job seekers and job providers. eBay, sellers, buyers. Two-sided marketplace, right? Realestate.com.au spent $200 million developing its technology, right? I can go and right now for $50 a month, I can subscribe to a platform called Share Tribe, and I can build a two-sided marketplace on there, badge it up, branch it up, and pay $50 a month, and hack together a Seek, a car sales, realestate.com.au. Wouldn't look any different. It'd be, be 80% of the way there, right? So there's a lot of things that we would call low code, no code, platforms as a service, ways to shortcut having to build your own technology so you can try your idea out. And that's like $50 a month. Have a Shopify store, $25 a month. Squarespace. Like, there's a lot of different ways. If you start to think about the fact that I don't always need to develop heaps and heaps of code to be able to do that. Last resort is to find somebody in the School of Computer Science and say, do you want to be my co-founder, right? Can you help me? Let's partner together. I think it's a bad idea for a different reason. If you came to the course, if you wanting more, I'll tell you why. But you can also team up with somebody you can develop, right? So it's about thinking about guerrilla creative ways. You can create a $100 million startup, in my opinion, on the smell of an oily rag. It's just about being creative, and there are paths to it that are not money or technology dependent.
Interesting. Well, we've come to 1:30, which means we have to wrap up, but you are more than welcome to stay a little and chat with everyone, of course, if you have time.
Can I just do a quick PR announcement?
Sure.
The next Innovation Challenge, 5th of September. Sorry? 15th of September. So it's a full day. We'll kick off about 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll go through till about 8 o'clock at night. We'll feed you for the day. That's the plus, right? We may even manage to find some beer somewhere. Who knows? But I've been promised we might be able to find some beer this time. But look, I mean, the challenge that we're going to be launching is all around getting to net zero. So one of the things, whether you're going to be an entrepreneur or whether you're going to be an intrapreneur, i.e. working for an organisation, is this thing called triple bottom line, which all big organisations today need to solve for. And so we're going to give you some exposure to that. You're going to have a go at solving some problems around that. It'll be heaps of fun, as you've heard. It's a transformational experience. So keep an eye out for it, register for it. Love to see you there. And also we're launching the Venture Makers unit as well in September. So if you want to do that as part of your degree, 10 credit points, get on that as well.
I think Brad's plugging. I'm going to plug.
Kill or be killed, people.
Pre-flight 2 days acceleration experience starts on Thursday. Thursday, Friday, free. See Mabel if you want to enroll. Our next major program starts on the 3rd of August. If you've got an idea and you want to accelerate, I'm running it. Mabel can also hook you up with applications free for students. Alrighty. And thank you to everyone for putting everything together. Thank you to Jacob and thank you to me for coming along and thanks for listening. Thanks, teams.